So today, Babu is going to show you how to fell a medieval gown. Just kidding, Babu doesn't have thumbs. I'm going to show you. The gown is based on this kind of wool over gown. They come in a lot of variations of simplicity. This is a simpler one. So I'm felling this wool medieval gown. Felling linen is a little bit different, and what felling is just closing up the edges of the internal seam allowance so that it doesn't fray out with wear and washing and whatnot. I'm using a thimble and beeswax, and I like to use linen thread. And I'm going to be doing a whip stitch along the edge of that internal seam. So with wool, you can actually get away with not felling often because it will like slowly felt over time, and it usually doesn't fray out too badly. But it's always better to fell a garment for durability and everything. You can see I've cut back one of those two seam allowances, and that will give me something to fold over and it won't be too bulky. This is some beautiful wool that was hand dyed with authentic dyes from Carl Robinson in the UK, and it's extremely expensive but really fun and special to work with. I'm doing a whip stitch right on the edge of that wool seam allowance, and I'm just going through the front of the fabric. Like I'm using my finger to support the fabric on the back, or on the front really, and I'm just touching my fingers so that I get tiny little stitches going to the front, and it's not super obvious. Like you can see that line, but it doesn't look like a seam. Oh look, I found my thimble, thank goodness. Why did I put it there? Who knows? Anywho, so now I've got my thimble back. I'm so much more efficient with it. So this is how I start a new thread and finish a previous thread. I make a little knot and then just sew over the tail from the previous one. If I was felling something in linen, I would be using a different technique. You can actually do a rollover fell with linen, and then you can actually running stitch some of it. So it is faster than with wool. I'm just going to show you what it would look like if I didn't fell it. You can see it will fray out a little bit, and that's what we're trying to avoid by binding everything down with our whip stitch. Okay, so the only part that I open fell is the front because it's going to be more symmetrical and look nicer because that's that front seam. Everything else I just fold over, trim the inside seam allowance, and then whip stitch everything down. So that's the very front. And this is what it looks like from the outside. You can just see those little tiny stitches, and it gives a really nice aesthetic and will last a long time. If you found this useful, I do have a lot more medieval sewing content. So follow, subscribe, all those things.